Okay, so have you ever like been in that situation where
Huh.
uh you, the perfect answer, you know what you want to say, but you just can't seem to get those words out in English?
No,
It's happened to all of us, and that's what we're diving deep into today.
absolutely.
It's how to nail those job interviews in English.
That's right. We're going to give you the tools and the
Yes,
strategies to not just survive,
exactly.
but really, shine even when you're under pressure.
Yes, exactly. So welcome to Podcast Listen and Learn English with host speaker. This
Yes,
is your go-to resource for confident English communication.
absolutely.
I'm your host speaker, and I'm so excited to be joined today by our expert, Diana.
Hi, everyone.
Diana is a seasoned interview coach, so she's got all the tips and tricks.
I try my best.
Now, before we jump in, I do want to give a shout out to all of our amazing listeners.
Yes.
We spend hours researching and analyzing material to bring you these deep dives.
We do.
So if you find this episode helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below.
Definitely.
We really appreciate you, and we love hearing from you.
We do.
Okay, so let's get down to business.
Right?
We're talking about mastering English for job interviews.
Yes.
So, Diana, why is English like such a make or break factor these days?
That's a great question.
Even for jobs that, maybe aren't explicitly international.
Well, you're right. Even if a company isn't operating, across borders, the reality is that English has become like the common language of the business world.
Yeah.
So being able to communicate well in English, it shows potential employers that you're adaptable,
Yes.
that you can collaborate with all kinds of different teams, and that you're plugged into global industry trends.
It's really about showing that you can thrive in like today's globalized, interconnected workplace.
Exactly.
I think that's a really great point.
Thank you.
So you've coached countless people through this process.
I have.
What are some of the like most common struggles
Oh, there are so many.
that you see people facing when it comes to English in job interviews?
Well, one of the biggest I see over and over again is that feeling of knowing what you want to say,
Right.
but struggling to find the right words in English right then and there on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
It's that pressure cooker situation,
Yeah.
It can really throw people off their game.
It can, and it can lead to, people fumbling using filler words,
Absolutely.
not sounding as confident as they are.
Exactly. And then you have to add on top of that the issue of industry-specific vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
You might be an expert in your field, in your own native language,
Mm-hmm.
but all of a sudden you're hit with all these terms in English like synergy and paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It can feel like you're back in school trying to cram for a vocab test.
Yeah, and your brain just freezes up.
Exactly.
And then, of course, there's also the fear of messing up pronunciation,
Oh, yeah.
especially with those long words
Absolutely.
with lots of syllables.
It's tricky because it's not just about getting the individual sounds right.
Right.
It's also about the rhythm and the intonation of the language.
Yes. And then, of course, there's the ever-present fear of making grammar mistakes.
Of course.
So, like all of these anxieties just kind of snowball
We do.
into this overwhelming sense of dread.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so unnecessary
Okay.
because remember, perfection is not the goal here.
Okay.
The most important thing is clear, effective communication.
Yeah, clarity over perfection.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
That's a great takeaway, even for life in general.
Exactly.
But before we get too philosophical here,
Right.
let's talk about some practical steps that people can take
Okay.
to tackle these challenges head on.
Right.
So where should people even begin?
Well, in my experience, one of the most effective starting points is mastering the art of answering those common interview questions.
Okay.
Think about those classic questions that you see pop up in like almost every interview.
Right.
It's like, tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in this position? What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah.
The key is to have a solid structure for your answers.
So instead of trying to like wing it in the moment,
Yeah,
it's better to have some kind of pre-prepared frameworks
exactly.
for those go-to questions.
You got it. And there's this fantastic technique that I love to teach people called the STAR method
Okay.
that can really help you structure your answers.
The STAR method.
Yes?
Now that rings a bell, but I think a lot of our listeners would benefit from a quick refresher.
Of course.
So can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
So essentially, it's a way of telling a story
Okay.
about your experience that highlights your skills and your accomplishments in a really structured way.
So instead of just like listing out your skills or experiences,
Right.
you're actually crafting a mini narrative
Yes.
that illustrates how you've applied those skills
Exactly.
in real-world situations.
It's like showing versus telling, but for job interviews.
I love that it makes your answer so much more engaging and memorable.
It does.
Okay, now before we jump into the STAR method
Yes.
in more detail, I just want to remind our listeners,
Okay.
if you're finding this helpful, please show us some love.
Yes.
Hit that like button, subscribe to a podcast, listen, and learn English with Host Speaker
That's right.
for more awesome content, and leave a comment below
Definitely.
with your biggest takeaways from today's discussion.
I'd love to hear them.
All right, Diana, let's walk our listeners through how to use the STAR method to craft like a killer answer
Let's do it.
to that classic interview question. Tell me about yourself.
All right, let's go. So let's imagine you're in that hot seat
Okay.
and the interviewer hits you with that classic, tell me about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's how you can use the STAR method to just nail it.
I'm ready.
Okay, so first, you set the situation.
Okay.
You want to think of a specific work experience that shows off your skills that's really relevant to the job you're interviewing for. So, for example, you might say, in my previous role as a project manager at company name,
Okay.
I was responsible for leading a team of 5 to develop a new marketing campaign.
So you're setting the scene.
Exactly. You're giving them that context.
Yeah.
Then you move on to the task.
Okay.
Describe the challenge you faced or the goal you were trying to achieve. You could say, our task was to launch this campaign within a really tight deadline
Okay.
and with a limited budget.
So you're establishing those stakes.
Right. You're showing them the complexity,
Yeah.
the difficulty.
Yeah.
Now comes the action.
Okay.
This is where you really get to shine.
Okay.
You explain those steps you took to tackle that challenge or achieve that goal. So you might say, I implemented a new project management methodology,
Okay.
delegated tasks effectively, and kept the team motivated despite the pressure.
So you're highlighting your initiative.
Yeah.
You're showing how you took ownership.
Exactly. And finally, you wrap it up with the result. So what was the outcome of all your hard work?
Yeah.
How did you contribute to the success of the project?
Mm-hmm.
You could say something like, as a result of our efforts, we launched the campaign on time and under budget,
Right.
and it exceeded all of our performance targets.
So you're bringing it all together.
Yes.
Highlighting that positive impact.
Exactly.
That's great, Diana. The STAR method is such a powerful tool
Always.
for structuring those answers in a way that's compelling,
Yeah,
but also easy for the interviewer to follow.
absolutely. And the best part is you can adapt it to almost any interview question.
I love that. Okay, so before we move on,
Yes.
I just want to remind everyone
Okay.
that we're diving deep into mastering English for job interviews.
Yes.
We've got a lot more to cover.
We do.
If you're enjoying this episode, please hit that like button.
Yes.
Subscribe to Podcast Listen and Learn English with Host Speaker
That's right.
for more awesome content.
We have tons.
And leave a comment below with your biggest takeaways
Yeah, I would love to hear them.
from today's discussion.
All right.
Okay, so Diana, let's move on to another common challenge
Okay.
that people face.
Yeah.
You know that feeling of being put on the spot
Oh, yeah.
and struggling to think in English quickly enough
Yeah.
to form a coherent answer?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So any tips for overcoming that mental hurdle?
Well, one of the most effective strategies that I found
Okay.
is to actually train your brain to think in English.
Yeah,
Now, I know that might sound a little daunting,
it does.
but it's more about creating these small, consistent habits
Okay.
than trying to completely overhaul your thought process overnight.
Right,
Then-
little by little.
Yes, small steps.
Okay, so what are some practical ways that people can start incorporating
Okay.
more English into their daily lives, even if they're not
Right.
in an English-speaking environment?
One really simple but surprisingly effective exercise
Okay.
is to narrate your day in English.
What?
Yeah, even if it's just in your head. As you're going through your routine, describe what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, all in English.
So it's like giving your brain a workout in English mode.
Exactly.
Even if you're not
Well,
surrounded by English speakers.
creating that immersive experience.
Yeah.
Another great way to practice is to start consuming more English language content,
Okay.
but with a twist.
Okay.
So instead of just passively watching or listening,
Right.
actively engage with it.
Okay.
Take notes. Look up unfamiliar words.
Okay.
Try to summarize what you've learned all in English.
So you're taking that passive consumption and making it an active learning
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
I love that.
It helps.
Okay. So speaking of vocabulary,
Yes.
we talked about this a little bit earlier.
We did.
But that fear of not knowing the right industry-specific terms
Right.
can be a major confidence killer.
Absolutely.
So Beyond flashcards and memorization,
Yeah.
are there any more engaging ways to build a professional vocabulary?
Absolutely. One of the best resources, believe it or not, is job descriptions.
Oh, wait.
They're like gold mines for relevant vocabulary.
Okay.
Take some time to really analyze those job descriptions in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Highlight unfamiliar terms, look them up, pay attention to how those terms are being used in context.
It's like learning from the source.
It is.
Yeah.
It gives you a real insight into the language that's actually used.
In your profession.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
And talk about another big one, nerves.
Oh, yeah.
We all get those butterflies before a job interview,
Of course.
especially when English isn't our first language.
Absolutely.
Any tips for managing those pre-interview jitters?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that feeling nervous is completely normal.
Oh,
It means you care about this.
Right.
The key is to channel that nervous energy into positive focus. One of the simplest but most effective ways to calm your nerves is to practice deep breathing.
Oh, yeah.
So before you go into the interview, take a few moments to just focus on your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Inhale deeply through your nose, hold for a few seconds,
Yeah.
and exhale slowly through your mouth.
It's so basic.
Yeah,
But I know those deep breaths can make a world of difference.
they really can.
It's like hitting reset
Exactly.
on your nervous system.
It is. And another thing to remember is it's totally okay to pause during the interview.
Oh, yeah.
If you need a moment to gather your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to feel like you have to rush into an answer.
Right.
Taking a moment to compose yourself actually shows you're thoughtful,
Right.
you're deliberate, not flustered or unprepared.
Those pauses can be so powerful.
They are.
It's better to take a moment to collect your thoughts
Yeah.
than just stumble through an answer
Right.
you haven't fully formed yet.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of pauses, let's talk about those pesky filler words. You know, the ums, the yes, the like,
You knows?
yeah, they tend to sneak in when we're nervous
Yeah.
or trying to find the right words, but they can really undermine your message.
Okay.
So how do we get rid of those?
Yeah, how do we kick them to the curb?
Well, the key is to become more aware of when you're using them
Okay.
and then consciously replace them with those pauses.
Okay.
It might feel a little awkward at first,
Right.
but trust me, it sounds so much more professional.
yeah.
And it gives you that chance to breathe and gather your thoughts.
It's like turning those ums into moments of reflection.
Exactly.
Okay, so finally let's address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Accent and grammar.
Yes.
So many people get so hung up on these things.
I know.
How much do they really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Honestly, they're way less important than you think.
Okay.
Remember, the goal of communication is to be understood.
Right.
Employers are looking for someone who can express their ideas clearly,
Right.
effectively, not someone who speaks with a perfect accent. Mm-hmm.
Or never makes a single grammar mistake.
So it's about focusing on that clarity and fluency
Exactly.
rather than striving for some unattainable level of
Right.
perfection.
Exactly. And you know what? A slight accent can actually be an asset.
Really?
It adds personality and makes you memorable.
Interesting.
Don't be afraid to embrace it.
Yeah.
And as for grammar, even native speakers make mistakes all the time.
Oh, yeah, we do.
The key is to focus on the overall structure,
Right.
the flow of your sentences, making sure your message is clear
Yeah.
and easy to understand.
That's so reassuring to hear.
Good.
It takes so much pressure off.
It does.
Okay, so before we move on to our final thoughts for today,
Right.
we'd love to hear from our listeners.
Yes.
What are your biggest takeaways from today's discussion?
Yeah.
Share your insights in the comments below.
Absolutely.
You know, your comment might be just the thing that someone else needs to read
Yeah, you never know.
to overcome their interview anxieties.
And of course, if you're finding this episode helpful,
Yes,
please hit that like button.
that's right.
Subscribe to Podcast Listen and Learn English with Host Speaker so you never miss an episode.
That's right.
And share this with anyone
Definitely.
who might benefit from these tips.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back with our final thoughts
Right.
on mastering English for job interviews. Welcome back to Podcast Listen and Learn English with Host Speaker.
Yes, welcome back.
We're in the final stretch here of our deep dive into mastering English for those job interviews.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. So before we send you all off to conquer your next interview,
Yes.
let's recap some key takeaways
All right.
and maybe leave you with a thought-provoking question
I like that.
to ponder.
All right.
So, Diana, what are some of the things that we really want our listeners to remember?
Okay, well, first of all, preparation is key. The more you practice,
Yes.
those common interview questions,
Mm-hmm.
and rehearse your answers, the more confident you're going to sound. The more fluent you're going to sound, and when it comes to vocabulary, don't just rely on flashcards.
Yeah.
Immerse yourself in the language of your field.
Right.
Engage with, real materials like job descriptions, industry publications.
Okay.
Make it a habit to actively learn new words.
It's about really making English
Yes.
a part of your professional life,
Absolutely.
not something you cram for right before an interview.
Exactly. And when those nerves start to kick in, remember to breathe.
Breathe.
Take those pauses. Replace those filler words with silence.
Right.
Focus on getting your message across clearly and authentically.
Yeah, it's not about being perfect.
No, it's not about perfection.
It's about connecting with the interviewer and showing who you are.
Showing your skills, your experience in a genuine way.
So, Diana, as we wrap up here,
Yes.
what's that final thought-provoking question?
Okay, so I want you to think back to a time when you really just nailed a presentation or a conversation in English. What was different about that experience? What allowed you to shine? Tap into that feeling of confidence, that sense of flow. You have the skills, you have the knowledge. Now believe in yourself and go out there and ace that interview.
That was beautiful. Diana, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And listeners, we want to hear from you. What's your biggest takeaway from today's deep dive? What action step are you going to take to prepare for your next English interview? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going.
Absolutely.
And as always, thank you for joining us on Podcast Listen and Learn English with Host Speaker. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep those English communication skills sharp.
Yes, keep up the great work, everyone.
We'll see you in the next deep dive. Happy interviewing.